Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bad Luck Gamer, and we are at the dawn of Player Core 2. This will probably be one of the first videos you're seeing on all the new stuff coming out, and I just wanted to do a quick highlight video of all the really cool things and some of the biggest changes coming out in Player Core 2 to some of your favorite classes, ancestries, and maybe even archetypes. So we got a lot in store. Let's just get right to it. First, we're starting off with Alchemist. Now, I do want to say that I thought Alchemist was completely balanced at first. They're so good because they can do so many things, and they could get bonuses similar to Marshals if you knew how to work the system. But of course, that was maybe a little bit too much for your average player, so Alchemist got some really good quality of life changes, but the Paizo staff know it might break the game, so they included this part here that says, over time, you create more and more alchemical items for free, and since each of them become more and more powerful, you advance in power dramatically, leaving behind those who don't understand your strange science. Yeah, so the Paizo staff absolutely know that Alchemist is now going to be bending the game to the will of the players who are willing to sit down and do all the math for it. And you know what? All the better, honestly. If people are showing more appreciation for Alchemist, I'm all for it. But you might be asking me, Bad Luck Gamer, what are these changes that are going to make Alchemist so broken? Well, one of the biggest changes anyone has ever been asking for the sake of Alchemist is they now get Master Proficiency at level 17. Now, level 17 is a little late, but they at least get Master Proficiency at all, which means a Alchemist's Proficiency is going to be extremely close to a martial character's, with the ability to hit pretty much any type of damage, pull out any kind of item, including vast healing items and the like, making Alchemist insanely good. Now, are they going to be the peak of damage? Probably not, but being as competitive with as many options as Alchemist gets, and by the way, options are going to be really a big part of Alchemist moving forward. Alchemist is going to be completely outmatched when in the hands of the proper users who know how to make the most use of the alchemical items in the book. Now, one thing I will say is they are still not trained in martial weapons, which at this point is probably a good thing, but I know many of you out there have been struggling trying to make martial weapon using alchemists, so that's something that's not as good for you guys. But if you go ahead and use the weapon familiarity from any of the ancestries, you can get some really good weapons in your hands regardless. Speaking about good weapons, so the Alchemist's main thing is now using versatile vials. Now, versatile vials are essentially replacing reagents in a sense, so it got split up. Now, Advanced Alchemy, an alchemist can create at the beginning of the day a number of items equal to 4 plus your intelligence modifier. Now, something you might notice is Advanced Alchemy no longer gives you double batches or more whenever you craft items, which can be a kind of a big deal. But since we don't have reagents, this is just everything you get at the beginning of the day. Instead, now we get versatile vials. Now, this is the stuff you use to do your quick alchemy with. So no longer now do you have to choose between making items at the beginning of the day and planning ahead, or keeping yourself open for your quick alchemy, which was essentially less efficient. Now you get both. Now, the number of versatile vials you get is 2 plus your intelligence modifier, which means starting out of the game, you have an advanced alchemy number of items equal to 8 if you're going full intelligence, and 6 for your versatile vials, which honestly is a lot, but versatile vials are also replenishable. At any time, if you're not at max versatile vials, you can scrounge around for 10 minutes, essentially a refocus action, to get back 2 of your versatile vials. And at level 17, you get abundant vials, which you are permanently quickened, which gives you an action to make a singular versatile vial at any time, even if you have double brew, which is still here, which allows you to make 2 items, but you can't do it with the abundant vials. So overall, Alchemists have rechargeable vials they can use for their quick alchemy. They get a good number of items at the beginning of the day, and while it doesn't have the same level of increase that advanced alchemy had before, I think it's overall worth it to have rechargeable vials so you can use them in combat pretty much as you want, as long as you know you're going to have a little bit of downtime after each fight. So overall, a huge improvement. Now, quick alchemy did get changed due to these vials. Now you can make a normal item for a singular action as normal with the with quick alchemy as we could before, but now we also get quick vial. Now, quick vial is slightly different because one, you can use the base vial, which I'll show you here, which does have some decent damage scaling into the game, but you also get it with your field's unique items as well that do certain things. And you might be saying, okay, but this is a intelligence-focused class. I still want to give my items to my fighter because they have a higher 2-hit. What's the point? The point is, Alchemist now does just better stuff with their vials than anyone really can imagine. Bomber getting the biggest buffs allows you to, just out in the field, when you use your vials, you can change the damage to either cold electricity or fire damage instead of acid damage when you strike with one of your quick vials, which means the whole action economy of making an item, giving it to your fighter so they can throw it 3 actions or throw a specific type of bomb is now just better in your hands because you do splash damage anyway, so you're going to proc weakness. And this is just with your base vials, not including any formulas for any better bombs you might have. But wait, there's more, because when you throw an alchemical bomb as the bomber, you also change the splash damage to your intelligence, which means your bombs do actually more damage in your hand when they hit over your fighter. Sure, your fighter might have a chance of critting more often than you do, but they don't get the benefits of this splash or from the ability to change your vial's damages just straight out of hand. So already, Bomber's really, really good. And I'm going to add in addition to this, Quick Bomber got a buff. So one of the early feats a lot of people would always take because it allows you to draw a bomb and throw it as a singular action can now be used with your quick alchemy to create whatever bomb you need and throw it for a singular action, completely making alchemical bombs much better in your hands because not only are you getting more splash, and not only are you getting any of the other bomber benefits, which, by the way, if you noticed, all the fields now have just more things they can do, and perpetuals are gone because now we can just restock our vials, right? So we don't need perpetual infusions anymore. That means each of the fields got extra things. Bomber is now the best bomb thrower in the game because they do more damage. They get bigger splash areas. You can choose who of your allies to splash or not splash, which is really huge. And now with Quick Bomber, you can combine it and just make any bomb you need for the scenario. It's just better. It's just really, really good, and it makes bombing alchemists feel really good. But they're not the only ones who got such good benefits. Moving on to Barbarian. Barbarian Rage no longer has a minute cooldown. So now you can rage if you fall unconscious during combat, which, thank the gods. But in addition to this, Barbarians starting out level 1 get access to Quick Tempered. Quick Tempered is a free action whenever you roll initiative to give yourself rage. So Barbarians have rage all the time. It's really good. And now Mighty Rage, which a lot of people liked for the action compression because you could, do another action while raging, now just doubles your rage damage on your first strike in a combat, which is really good. So yeah, you want to hit like a bus. Now it is specifically on your first strike. So if you miss, big sag, but with your Mighty Strike, first round of combat, that's... who knows? That's 24, I think, is the minimum. I think it actually got upped. I think most of the minimums got up to at least 13. So 26 to 32 damage on your first strike is extra damage. Rage damage is insanely good. It's absolutely insane. Oh, yeah. And you know what makes Barbarian even better now? Furious Footfalls. Yeah, Barbarian gets a +5 status bonus to their movement speed at 3rd level all the time. And when they're raging, it becomes plus 10. So yeah, now you are as fast as a bus and you hit like 1-2. Barbarian just getting all the really good buffs coming out in this book. And some of the instincts even got buffs. Dragon Instinct actually got buffs, funny enough, because now their damage types are not just purely the elemental. In fact, now the damage types range between bludgeoning, poison, fire, spirit, force, and mental. And of course, you could always ask your DM if you could just use some of the older versions of the dragons to use their types of breaths as well for your rage damage, if that's the way you want to go. Fury Instinct even got a little bit of a buff, though granted, I'm still a little bit disappointed with this one, but it is what it is. Now they do 3 rage damage rather than 2, which is not too bad. There's a few other rages that already kind of did something similar. And when they eventually get their specialization, they get up to 13, which is really good and pretty comparable to some of the other ones. It was 12 before, so we saw a buff overall. And of course, for the mid-levels, we have 7 instead of 6, which is really good. And Fury Instinct also got some unique feats of their own, most of them about being crit. Fury didn't quite get as many buffs as I was really hoping for, but seeing at least the increase to the damages was really nice, and seeing some feats that can help them reduce just damage as a reaction when they're critically hit is also nice to see as well. So Fury Instinct is going to contend for one of the tankiest barbarians on your team potentially, if we can withhold their reaction to, tank a crit. And in addition to this, the Superstition Instinct is now not completely nerfed. If a spellcaster is spellcasting on your barbarian, no longer is it anathema to them, though they are just frightened one until the spell effect goes away. So it still sucks to cast spells on your Superstition Instinct barbarian, but now they don't have to leave your party, which is quite the boon. Now, Champion, I know many of you are super excited for, and to be honest, they got some really good buffs as well. Champion now has deific weapons that allow them to go up to advanced weapons, treating those weapons as martial weapons for the sake of proficiency. They're still advanced weapons, but now you're considered at least proficient in them, which is really solid. Also, the champions now have this aura. It's a 15-foot aura. You probably already heard this, but now all their aura effects and reactions are based on the standard champion's aura. So now there's no longer needing to do measurements. Your character just constantly has this aura around them. It functions more or less the same way, but now this is just a singular rule that kind of applies to all further rules, which makes the class a lot easier to play. No longer do you get allies, but instead you get new blessings. These blessings of the devoted are separated into 3 categories, similar to before, but now we have the armament blessing, which any weapon you have gets the same kind of rune effects that we had before, so nothing really new here. But now we have the shield blessing, which works differently now. It doesn't have quite the same benefits, though kind of similar. So now any shield you have is considered having the minor reinforcing rune, which, if you're unfamiliar with this rune, gives your shield more hardness. Now, if your shield already has this rune or is a sturdy shield, which is essentially the benchmark, then you increase the shield's hardness by 1. And finally, a change that I think many will find somewhat controversial, though I completely understand why they did this, was Blessed Swiftness, which gives you just a 5-foot status movement speed all the time. If you have a mount, it is applied to your mount, but it's no longer a mount. But now you don't have to have a mount if you want to move fast. And if you take this particular blessing, any ally within your aura that triggers a reaction based on their movement gets a plus to their defense, whether that is to their AC or to a saving throw. So this is actually really good. Blessing of Swiftness, or Blessed Swiftness, allows you to have your team be able to more freely move around in combat. Maybe not all the time, but definitely a lot more, which is really good. Now, champions are no longer beholden to being purely good, purely evil, though some of the causes they have do force them to kind of make such choices. For instance, if you go with the cause of desecration, you have to pick unholy. If you pick grandeur, it is holy. If you take iniquity, it is unholy, and if it's redemption, it is holy. But for justice, liberation, and obedience, you can choose whichever or just have no actual choice and just deal spirit damage whenever your stuff would normally do law damage if you're familiar with the legacy version. Now, I'm not going to get into all the causes. That's going to be a different video, but most of them are pretty similar to the way they were before. Just instead of doing a specific alignment damage based on your charisma, now they do spirit damage. So just so you know, most of the causes are pretty similar to the ones that we had before, but now if you want to play a more neutral champion, it's a lot easier to do so. In addition to these base mechanical changes that kind of brings Champion up to what the new remaster is going for, Champion also got a good list of new feats like this one here with Defensive Advance. That lets you stride, raise your shield, and strike an enemy if you're within range, all for just 2 actions, meaning that champions are now much more active. We have a lot more feats that mean that champions are actually doing things on their turn, and they're not just resorting to using only their reactions, which is really good. So Champion overall feels a lot better. The new blessings work, and if you're considered about your mount, don't worry. Faithful Steed is also available as early as level 1, so you can have a mount if you absolutely want one. Moving on to Investigator, Pursue Lead just has more text now. Yay! More for this monstrous, it's scrolling on screen right now. It's ridiculous. But now Pursue Lead has been kind of shifted. Investigator is now less annoying, but still the same kind of annoying. There's still things here that people are not going to like about it. But now, whenever you're pursuing a lead to follow a mystery of some form, if the lead is like a red herring, is not going to go anywhere, the GM could just kind of tell you now that your lead is going nowhere. And if it is attached to something that's more important, it opens it up to a larger mystery. This term referring to like an ongoing thing. So whenever it's related to this ongoing larger mystery, then that's your GM saying, hey, you're on the right track. This just gives the GM the way to maneuver their investigator so that they are pursuing the leads they want them to, rather than constantly pursuing a lead all the time just to get the bonuses, which is very kind of silly. Also, in addition to this, Devise a Stratagem is now way better because now you can use it in the same way that you could before. But in addition to that, if you rolled really bad on your D20, you can instead opt out of your offensive stratagem, which would cause you to strike an opponent using the result on the D20. And instead, you just get a bonus to an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma check without using the roll that you just rolled. So essentially, you rolled really bad and you're like, oh, okay, if I strike now, I'm just going to miss. That's a waste. So I'm going to do another action, and now this action will give you a +1 bonus, or if this target is the target of your Pursue a Lead or related to it, then it increases by an amount equal to what you would normally get for Pursue a Lead, which makes this really easy for you to use your Devise Stratagem all the time, because now, even if you roll badly on it, you can just get a bonus instead to another action like Recall Knowledge, maybe Bon Mot, or some other kind of action. And speaking on getting Devise Stratagem much more easily, a new early level feat at level 2, we get Person of Interest. This one is insanely good and probably a must-take because it allows you to, as an action, designate a target as if they were the target of your Pursue a Lead. What this does is your Devise Stratagem is now a free action against that target for the rest of the combat. Now, this is really good, and it stacks really well because the action you would have used to devise a stratagem is now used to make that target forever a free target for you, and then you can just free target them with devise a stratagem. So there's no loss in action economy. Now, you can only do this once per 10 minutes, so you have to be really careful with this one. Probably put it on a boss or wait till you can put it on a boss, but still insanely good. Probably a must take, honestly, for any investigators who want to do a little bit more in combat scenarios. Then we got Monk, and in many of the streams before, Paizo has already said that Monk was pretty much already perfect, so they didn't get many changes, but they did get some pretty impactful ones. First of all, they have a change to monastic weaponry. It's a really good feat. It allows you to essentially do any blows that require unarmed strikes with weapons. Now, rather than needing to select a second feat to do this, you can select any of your familiarity feats, so from any of the ancestries that give you weapon familiarity. As long as that weapon has either agile or finesse, you treat that weapon as a monk weapon, which is really, really good. And it just compresses some feats together, meaning that now monks who take monastic weaponry have just a lot more options and don't need to do 2 feat sync to get this benefit, which is insanely good. Also, Monk just got access to another banger feat. It's called Godbreaker, and it's really good. Now, it does require that you have 2 other feats. You need to have Crushing Grab and Whirling Throw. Obviously, this one is going to let you manhandle an enemy like a boss, right? And that's exactly it. So the requirement is you have an enemy grab or restrained, and this one is 3 actions. So you do have to grab an enemy, and they need to be still grabbed at the start of your turn, which is a little hard, but considering we're a monk and considering that we probably have really good strength and very high athletics, probably a lot of enemies out there are not going to be able to escape our grasp. Now, what we do is we spend 3 actions, and we first toss the enemy 20 feet into the air, jump up with them, kick them another 20 feet into the air, and you do this up to 2 times, or 2 additional times. So after each strike, up to a maximum of 60 feet kicked up into the air and 3 strikes. Then we slam the enemy down back into the ground, dealing an amount of damage equal to one of our strikes. So a free strike added to the end of this, and throughout the entire time, the enemy remains grabbed or restrained. Now, this does not have, or this does include maps. So you do have to worry about not hitting with your future strikes. And if you miss any of these strikes, you fall to the ground at the same distance that the enemy does. So hopefully you have some way of not breaking your neck when you hit the ground. But the insane thing about this is this does 4 attacks worth of damage potentially, plus an additional 60 damage on top of it, and the enemy remains grabbed, which is insanely good. Godbreaker is so funny, so cool, and if you know Naruto, maybe a little cringe, but you know what? That's what we love Monk about anyway. So yeah, Monk mostly untouched, except for Godbreaker, which is really good. Next up, we have Oracle. Now, Oracle, I'm sure many of you have already been kind of made aware of the changes, but some of the biggest changes is, 1, Oracle actually no longer starts out with 2 focus points. Yeah, it's crazy. Nope, instead they get 1 focus point, but the trade is now when they only have 1 revelation spell, they also gain access to a curse-bound feat that now triggers their curse. So now, no longer do your revelation spells trigger your curse, which is really good because many of the Oracle Mysteries curses were kind of terrible, and the bonus of the revelation spell didn't feel like a bonus. It felt like you were trying to make up for the downside of some of the curses. Now, some of the curses could be worked around with, like Cosmos, which has changed now. Sorry, Cosmos players. It's not as good as it used to be. But now we get really good feats, like Foretell Harm, which you get when you pick the Flames Mystery. Now, just as a free action, whenever you cast a spell, you select a target that was hit by that spell, and they take a number of extra damage of the same type of damage that the spell dealt to them at the beginning of their turn as some mishap happens. As a free action, we can just do extra damage. Sure, we get the Cursebound trait, but you can choose to just do extra damage with Foretell Harm, which is really, really good. But in exchange, again, it's all about exchanges when it comes to oracles. The curses are now just mostly bad. They mostly just hurt you, and there's no fun ways to make them good for you. For instance, Cosmos, as I mentioned before, no longer just gives you just straight up damage resistance. Now you just are enfeebled with a value equal to your curse-bound value, which I'll talk about here in a moment, and you take a penalty to all saves against anything that forces movement upon you, which kinda sucks. So yeah, now Cursebound is a new condition, similar to like a disease. You can think of it as Cursebound. It goes up in layers. At most, you can only have Cursebound 2, but as you get higher in level, you can get up to Cursebound 3 and even Cursebound 4. Now for Cosmos, the enfeebled condition is equal to your Cursebound trait, so you can get enfeebled 4, which is real terrible. So yeah, obviously this looks kind of bad, right? Less focus points. And sure, foretell harm is kind of good, but it's not that good. Oh ho ho, let me tell you, the feats they can get that have the Cursebound trait are insane. Let's talk about the Dead Walk that's for either the Ancestors or Battle Mystery. This one just lets you summon warriors for 2 actions in a 30-foot emanation somewhere around you, and these warriors each attempt a strike against an enemy that they're adjacent to, that you summon them in, and they use your spell attack modifier rather than your attack modifier. Now, these warrior strikes each deal 4d6 spirit damage, and the warriors can flank enemies with each other or with an ally. When one of these warriors uses their strike, they disappear. And when your Cursebound is higher, it increases the number of warriors you summon. At Cursebound 2, which is super easy to do, this gives you 3 warriors, and at Cursebound 3, it gives you 4 warriors. And the crazy thing is, because they just use your spell attack modifier, but you're not making the attacks, none of these apply map. Yeah, so you can attack 4 people at once for just 2 actions, which is absolutely insane. And because they can flank with each other, I mean, this is insanely powerful. This is the power of the Oracle. Yeah, sure, your curse sucks now. I mean, Flames just makes you take damage every turn equal to your Cursebound trait, but that's nothing compared to some of the insane stuff you can do with some of these feats. Honestly, this is really cool. I absolutely love the changes to Oracle, and with these changes, there's just a new dimension to Oracle. Oh, and I also forgot, speaking about new dimensions, each mystery used to give you 2 domains that you could get feats for to select domain spells for. Yeah, you now have 4. And at level 11, you add to your repertoire 3 spells from a deity who shares one of the domains that your mystery has, giving you more spells in your repertoire for free, making Sorcerer one of the more powerful casters out there, because not only do they just get a lot of spells for spell repertoire caster, but now they just have feats that mimic spell effects. It's insane. And don't get it twisted, the Cursebound abilities are insanely good, don't get me wrong. But you can only do so once you're at your max Cursebound, you can't use them anymore. If you can't increase beyond what you have, so any more than twice early level, then you can't do them anymore until you refocus. Now, removing your curse is still tied to refocusing, and you can do so while refocusing your focus points. So there's no overlap there where you have to worry about refocusing for twice as long, which means like for Flames, you're burning until you refocus, which can be really bad. But you can't use these effects until you refocus. So you essentially get twice as many focus spells, essentially, that you use both focus points for and now your Cursebound trait for. Oracles are really, really cool, and I can't wait to see some of the crazy builds I know are waiting out there for this particular class. Sorcerer, which is a class that I particularly haven't had a lot of love for. I felt like they're very basic, and to be fair, that's what Paizo wants. That's not what I want, so I'm divorcing my opinion of them to tell you about the cool things about them, because they actually do get some really cool stuff. Like, for instance, Sorceress Potency. Now, all spells cast by sorcerers that deal either damage or give healing now give extra damage or healing equal to the rank of the spell that they cast. So a Fireball, a rank 3 spell, now does 3 extra damage to each target that it hits whenever you use Fireball. And a higher level Fireball will do even more damage. So yeah, Sorcerer's spells now do more damage than any other caster. It's not a lot, but it's something, and that makes this basic class really, really good for a lot of people out there. If you know someone who's really smooth brain, who doesn't want to monitor all the spells they're casting, don't want to worry about preparing spells ahead of time, give them Sorcerer. They get to do some extra damage and other cool things. And by the way, their blood magic was made even better. So blood magic had some effects that were kind of okay, and most of them stayed mostly the same. But some of the worst ones, like Aberrant, which just gave you a bonus to saving throws, to will-based saving throws more specifically. Now, if you're in a situation where that just doesn't come up and it became useless, you now can give an enemy a -1 status penalty to will saves for a round, which means mostly your allies will get the benefit of it, but still insanely good. And in addition to this, sorcerers gain new feats that enhance or give them new blood magic effects. Let's take a look here at Reflect Harm. Now, Reflect Harm allows you to essentially bounce back the first spell against you until the start of your next turn. You make a spell attack against the target who casts the spell, and they take as much harm as you took from that spell, which is really good as a reaction you can take. And for you dragon people out there who want to see all the new dragon stuff, Draconic Sorcerers now can pick a dragon exemplar from the list of the new dragons, which actually changes which gifts they give you. So each dragon gives you new spells that are added to your repertoire instead of base dragon. So if you don't want to be a basic dragon sorcerer, now you can have a dragon exemplar and be an adamantine dragon sorcerer, which is really cool. There are fewer classes out there that got as much quality of life as Swashbuckler did, and Swashbuckler, man, they are eating good. They didn't get anything super impressive, but now they have Bravado. Bravado is a trait that gets added to any skill that they use like all the time, like acrobatics, for instance, and based on their style. Now, Panach now just gives you access to your finishers, but all the cool stuff that Swashbucklers needed it for are actually now just available to them. For instance, now the extra damage they got with Precise Strike is just an all-the-time thing. The only difference is now when they have Panach, they add the Precise Strike damage change to finishers, which was already a thing they had. So nothing lost, only gains. Swashbucklers now just add damage anytime they strike with a finesse or agile weapon, which is insanely cool. Also, the status bonus they gain to skills relevant to, acrobatics or their style, they get that bonus all the time. Now, not just in Panach. So any skill that has Bravado, they just get a +1 status bonus for, making it actually easier for them to get into Panach. And actually talk about getting easier to get into Panach. So many of their feats now can just give you Panach. They have something like Elegant Buckler, which now when you're raising a buckler and it's also giving you the higher AC bonus, if an enemy crit misses you while you have your buckler raised, you just get Panach. And this is the crazy thing. This is like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually insane, because now Panach is just for finishers, more or less. You just get Panach to get finishers. Now, Panach actually also applies to several other feats, so that's not 100% accurate, but from a very dumbed down, smooth brain, basic way of looking at it, now getting Panach is mostly just so you can do finishers. Sure, your status bonus to speed is faster when you have Panach by 5 feet, but that's not a big deal. And when you're next to an opponent anyway, who cares how fast you are? So you can use your finishers and you don't have to worry about it. And the thing is, now getting Panach is just baked into the kit. You no longer have to waste time on certain actions trying to get Panach. Now you just play the game as you normally would. You're still always doing damage. And then when you get Panach, boom, you can do a finisher, which just makes the class way more simplistic, way easier. And with such feats like Elegant Buckler that just gives you a Panach whenever an enemy just randomly misses you, feel free, go whole hog, use your finisher as much as you want, because now you're not even losing the damage you would have had from Precise Strikes, which is just really, really good. So I know it's been a lot, and I will have videos on all the changes for each of the classes. So if you've not done so already, which I don't know why you haven't, please like this video. It gets Pathfinder content out there on YouTube more easily. Any like helps on any video. Doesn't even have to be mine. Like all Pathfinder content so other people get to see it. But if you like my content specifically, also subscribe. Every day for the next couple weeks, I'm going to be doing a video on all changes to the classes, archetypes, spells, and ancestries. And speaking on ancestries, let's talk about the new versatile heritage, Dragon Blood. Yeah, you want to be part dragon? Well, now there's a versatile heritage just for you. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. You become a dragon. One of their base benefits, or like a dragon, I should say. One of their base benefits is if they succeed on a fear effect, they get a crit success instead. And then you can pick a lineage at level 1. You don't have to. And if you do, you pick a lineage. And if you have an exemplar dragon, you have to pick one from the same tradition. So if you pick the primal one, for instance, then you must select something like the adamantine dragon as your dragon exemplar. But yeah, you get a bunch of feats based on doing dragon stuff. In fact, they even stole some of the feats that Cobalts had and just are dragons. So you want dragon benefits, you're going to want to be a dragon blood. Speaking on Cobalts really didn't change. A lot of people were overly hyped for this, and I feel kind of bad. Cobalts are still the weird little guys. They have a lot of feats. They actually got some feats taken by Dragonblood, and they're now just, their lore is they imprint on powerful sources of magic or a powerful entity nearby, and that's the reason. Like, even their heritages mostly stayed the same. Just the reason for them has changed. Though they did get some more little scrungly feats, like Fleeing Shriek here, which you can use once per hour. It's 2 actions. You shriek loud, all creatures in a 10-foot emanation around you need to make a fortitude save against 5d6 sonic damage, which every odd level after this will go up by an additional d6. And then you stride, and this movement doesn't trigger any reactions from any creature that failed or critically failed the save. So not only do you get a big crying AoE that actually damages people, but you also get to scamper away like the little wimp you are, which I know is what people absolutely love about the Cobalt. So while a lot about them stayed mostly the same, they did get a few nuggets of some really interesting feats that make you get to be that little guy, which I think many of you will enjoy. And with Player Core 2, snares have returned to the game. Now, snares are mostly still kind of bad, in all honesty, but Snare Crafter, the archetype that used to exist before, has gotten a buff. That buff being, now your snares can use your class DC rather than their base DC. So now you can use your snares all the time. It still takes you 3 actions to do it in combat, but now you can do them in a minute, or you can do them in 3 action intervals outside of combat too, which is kind of cool. I don't know. Snares are still kind of okay, but now snares are better because Snare Crafter allows you to use your class DC. And speaking on classes, Rangers have a unique benefit when it comes to snares, where now they can use survival rather than crafting for anything snare related. So yeah, now a Ranger who wants to use snares doesn't have to invest in the thinky crafting skill. They can rely on good old wits and wisdom when it comes to survival. So not too bad. And speaking on archetypes, Wrestler exists. I haven't really looked too much into it, but the biggest thing you all need to know is now Wrestler is here in a core book. So now everyone can throw Wrestler into their builds because it's just a really good combat archetype. It's very, very solid. And yeah, that's all the changes coming out here in Player. Well, that's not all the changes. My bad. That's not all the changes. That's some of the biggest changes coming out in Player Core 2. I have not had the time to read through every single feat or every single new spell. That's what the next videos are for. So stay tuned. Every day I'm going to be looking into one of the classes. I'm actually going to start with Champion first, actually, then move on to Alchemist, then move to Oracle, and then I'll probably do the rest alphabetically. But I'll be doing a video on each of them so you can see all the changes before the book releases to the public, probably August 1st. So yeah, you're definitely not going to want to miss it. Subscribe to the channel. That's going to be it for me, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck hand reading to me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.